Hey, you blink, I'll cut your eyelids off. Don't you blink.
I got you.
Let's go.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition here of the Mass Steel Podcast. With, of course, yours truly, Charles Prodigy Richey right now. We're getting ready to kick off the opening drive right now. And I'm sure everyone is aware, but from yesterday, the conclude of the night, as reported by NFL Network's Aditi Kinkhabwala, who usually is one of the reporters that cover the Steelers off of that network, as well as a few teams in the AFC North, pretty much seems to say that, according to Ben's agent, Ryan Tollner, that Ben Roethlisberger will indeed be returning for another season. Now, as it hasn't been official just yet, but we still got to wait to hear from, the actual official restructuring of his contract, what they're going to do cap hit-wise, because Steelers chairman and owner Art Rooney II, team president, was saying that Ben and him met yesterday morning. They had a productive meeting. They were able to discuss a lot of things that relate to where they are and where they want to be, want to go. Ben did assure that he is committed to coming back to help them win, and they told Ben that they would like him to come back to help them win a championship. They both understand that the next step is to work out his current contract situation. Now, remember, as everyone is aware right now, that he is going to be, for his salary this year, aside from the sign bonus, set to make $19 million as it stands right now as we take a look at things for him. And going to be really interested to see how they're able to get that number further down even more when you look at it. Because so far, the biggest news, aside from Ben Roethlisberger, too, was also recorded 2 days ago that we heard the restructuring of Cam Heyward contract. The Steelers front office was able to convert Cam's base salary and roster bonus into a $9.4 million signing bonus, which created about an extra over $7.07 million in cap room for the Steelers. So, you got some stuff working out pretty good so far. Currently, at the moment, with everything pending, you still got to factor in Marquise Pouncey's retirement as far as his dead money goes. But right now, they're about over $19 million over the cap. Now, if they were to have Marquise Pouncey retire, that would bring the Steelers salary cap to around a little over $11.7 million right now. So definitely got some good stuff progressing right now in the positive direction as we take a look at everything. The Steelers' team cap right now is about $185 million with everything being factored in. They have over $4.5 million of rollover cap into this year's cap of the projected $108.5 million. But keep in mind, this salary cap could still go up more and more as things move along. Don't forget, we're still waiting to hear about Marquise Pouncey's retirement with the contracts. More particularly, one of the more notable ones, too, was ABC's, the Disney. Their contribution to the NFL's demand, they put down about $3.4 billion for Monday Night Football. And that's one thing that still needs to be ironed out. But for the most part, the television contracts seem like to be as is for the next decade. So you could be having some extra money right there. And plus, remember, too, it's still not a foregone conclusion if we're going to be seeing a 17-game schedule. That still needs to be decided. That has not been deemed official just yet. But I would like to believe at some point we are going to see a little bit more clarity on that, because an extra game where players like it or not could still be extra revenue, could still be a little bit of a difference here. Now, as far as with Ben Roethlisberger coming back, I know it has been official. We still got to wait till they put pen and ink to the paper to make this happen. I feel like it's inevitable to be happening right now. And a lot of people who've been waiting to see this guy move on from the organization, former players who played with Ben before, or even former Steelers, who feels like he's setting this franchise back a couple of years. I'll be honest with you. Let's think about this for a second. I think the Steelers right now, the way they do things, they've been a team that has been kind of like numb to kind of like rebuilding. The last time they really did it was 2003, which was their last losing record, by the way. They finished out the season 6-10. That was the second time they had a 6-10 record under Bill Cowher at the time, who actually did have about 3 losing seasons while with the Steelers. But at the same time, too, many people would argue, too, when they did that, it did force them to rebuild in a way, help give them some better picks in the draft. I mean, when you look at things, I mean, more particularly with Ben Roethlisberger being the biggest fish of them all. And that's why I really start to wonder right now. I mean, when you got like Ben Roethlisberger coming back to this team, it has to be a lot more than just making the playoffs. Obviously, they're still looking for champs hopes, but I feel like right now, I mean, they still feel like in their mind they're in it to win it, and I commend them for that. I just will say this right now: you got to start looking into the future, of course, but at the same time, too, really got to start to really wonder right now. I mean, what does this really truly mean right now for them going forward? Because when you look at stuff that's been happening from a perspective and how this franchise continues to run, I mean, under it, I mean, you look at like the first picks that Kevin Colbert's had. I mean, since he's been like the GM of this team, I mean, of course, the most obvious ones that stand out would be Troy Polamalu back in 03 and Ben Roethlisberger back in 04. But then you also had guys like Heath Miller back in 05, San Antonio Holmes in 06, even had Lawrence Timmon in 07, and of course, Marquise Pouncey, Cam Heyward in 2010, 2011, David DeCastro in 2012. And of course, you could also say like Bud Dupree and TJ Watt. I mean, a lot of those guys, too, I mean, when you really look at things, I mean, right now, you definitely have back-to-back years of Hall of Famers and Troy Polamalu, who's already enshrined, but Ben Roethlisberger at some point, who will be going into the can in due time. And then, I mean, you look at, like, the other guys they produce. I mean, Marquise Pouncey, he's another one that's a little bit questionable if he'll be, like, a Hall of Fame bound, which I anticipate he will, and Cam Heyward. So, I mean, you got, like, right there, I mean, like, easily 4 guys off the bat. I mean, you could potentially make an argument for that will be enshrined, and maybe TJ Watt at some point, too, if he continues to go on the pace that he's going at this point. But at the same time, too, I mean, let's be honest right now. I really do believe this was the right move. I mean, the Steelers, I mean, a lot of people look at, I mean, you look at the many people they had before in the past, where it's Troy Polamalu or Hines Ward, or guys like a Franco Harris, or even like a John Stallworth, people they did not have to owe them anything. But in some ways, I guess Ben Roethlisberger is a little bit of a different cat. I mean, simply because, I mean, let's be honest, the position that he plays for and how long they went through a drought when they haven't had one since Terry Bradshaw. I mean, the only other people that probably even came somewhat in the middle of that wasn't the old Donald, and then Ben Roethlisberger, realistically speaking here. I just got to believe right now they're still – it's just, you know what, they're going to go out swinging with their BB gun and Ben Roethlisberger. I think it's the wisest move. Because the thing is, no matter who you bring into this point, where they want to go the route of drafting a new quarterback, or even if they decide to like try and sign someone free agency or decide to trade for someone, you still got to build around them. You still got to make sure you get a legit offensive line or running back. I'd say offensive line would have to be the biggest priority when they get into that a little bit later on, because right now you got a lot of good tackles in this draft right now that is real reasonable, which I would not mind seeing the Steelers get with their first selection at the first pick of the number 24 in the first round. Now, keep in mind, this year they will be having 2 compensatory picks for this year's draft coming up as we look at it right now. So they're going to be having in round number 4, 141st overall for losing nose tackles Javon Hargrave, who went on to sign with the Eagles back in free agency last year. And then round number 6, 225th overall for free safety Sean Davis. Now remember, he did sign with the Washington football team rarely, which was known as the Redskins. But when it came at the end of training camp, he did not make the roster. He found himself wound back with the Steelers. So not only did the Steelers get back Sean Davis, but they still were able to qualify for a compensatory pick. The Steelers have two, which is the third most in this year's draft right now. The Cowboys right now, they have the most with four, followed by the Patriots, Rams, Packers, and Falcons, each with three. The Steelers will have two once again in the fourth round at 141st overall, and then round number 6 at 225th overall for losing guys in free agency such as Javon Hargrave and Sean Davis. So those will be other stuff right now. And also, too, like I said, Dale Lolley notes, too, aside from Cam Heyward's restructuring, Steelers could still create additional cap space with the restructuring of guys like defensive end Stephon Tuitt, kicker Chris Boswell, and fullback Derek Watt, which would be an additional $6 million in cap space. So if you factor that stuff in there, you're probably looking at about maybe around $5 million over the cap. And then just keep in mind, like I said, I anticipate this salary cap at some point. It would not surprise me if we see this blow up an extra no more than 15 million. Even if it's, I probably say right now, because there's a lot of optimism going on. Like I said, I really believe too, for a lot of teams who are going to be struggling in cap space when you look at this year. I mean, you look at the teams right now who are in horrific spots right now. You got the New Orleans Saints right now at $69.5 million over the salary cap. And a lot of that had to do with restructuring Breeze's contract, who is anticipated to be retiring any moment. You got the Rams at over $33.9 million over the cap. Even the Packers at $11.45 million. Now, behind the Steelers are the Falcons at $20.2 million. So the Steelers, they're not alone in this boat. But, I mean, when you really look at it, too, I mean, from this perspective, I mean, let's think about this for a second. You at least got 8 playoff teams who are over the cap right now. The Bills, Titans, Bears, Packers, Steelers, Chiefs, Rams, and Saints, all over the cap. So I would not be surprised if there is some sort of deal anticipated where a lot of teams get a huge break from this, which would not stun me at all. But I really do believe right now this is some good omens coming up. Also, too, we're hearing possible news, too. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster, I mean, is he going to be finding his way back with the Steelers? He says he wants to be a Steeler for the rest of his career. I mean, unless they cannot come to terms with a contract. He does not anticipate wanting to go anywhere. I mean, when we check things out. But right now, just give everyone a reminder, too. Usually around this time, we'd be seeing the scouting combine coming up. Dale Lolley is knowing that the scouting combine should be taking place. Instead, pro days will take their place as the only chance to players to make an impression between now and the draft. And the current schedule that Dale Lolley is pulling out for this, here we go. They got Friday, March 5th, which would be in Kansas. Alabama will be having 2 pro days, the first on March 23rd and the second on March 30th. So it'll be between March 5th and April 9th, pretty much for a lot of these campus workouts. Friday, March 5th, like I mentioned, according to Dale Lolley, it'll be Kansas. Tuesday, March 9th, it'll be Kansas State, Northwestern, Wisconsin, Whitewater. Wednesday, March 10th, Arkansas, Marshall, Maryland, Wisconsin. Thursday, March 11th, Clemson, Nevada, Texas. And Friday, March 12th, Arkansas State, North Dakota State, Oklahoma. And much more coming up pretty much. If you guys want to check it out, feel free to check out Dale Lolley's article on DK Pittsburgh Sports. Remember, you can follow Dale Lolley on Twitter at @DLolley_PGH. Make sure to check him out right now as we take a look at things more set. But like I said too, I mean, back to the Ben Roethlisberger situation. I really right now believe. No one's in a hurry to do anything. But I will just say this, like I said, the $50 million roster balls, that'll be a huge thing right now as we look at things. I mean, you got also too right now Mark Bowley, who also tweeted out a possible projection of having Ben Roethlisberger's deal when we take a look at things. And right now, if they were to restructure his contract, they're probably looking around like a $13.335 million restructure, which would include a $12.5 million bonus proration, which would make his cap hit go from 41.25 to $26.91 million. So pretty much about $15 million in cap space reduced right there. His dead cap for the 2021 season was just increased. Will go up to $40.175 million. Next year, $14.34 million. So, I mean, I think that's pretty reasonable right there. I think that's a very fair number right there. I mean, when you take a look at things, a lot of people have been wondering. I mean, obviously, it's given that we're not going to see this guy play with the highest cap hit they're going to be having for this season. But I do believe right now, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger has meant so much to this franchise for a lot of years. I mean, you could question the decision-making as it was getting late in the season. But, I mean, who would you rather go with? And I think it's plain simple right now. I mean, can he do a rebuild? Absolutely. But at the same time, how much are we going to have that niche right now to knowing that it's going to be for certain that there'll be some excellent quarterbacks coming out of next year's draft. We just have no idea. Because I know one of the guys that people were projecting for the Steelers going into this draft for this year was Mac Jones out of Alabama. Now, when you look at a guy like Mac Jones, he's not so much of a mobile quarterback, but he has pretty good decision-making. I mean, pretty much for his career, he threw for over 6,126 yards in his 4 seasons at the University of Alabama right there. There's a touchdown interception ratio of 56 to 7 interceptions right now. And he's only rushed for like 42 yards in his 4 years that he was there. They're giving the comparison to him like maybe like a Matt Barkley or A.J. McCarron, but we'll hit on quarterbacks pretty much on the next show, which would be next week, next Monday. But let's go back into what I was saying too, going into the show right now as we look at it. The more important stuff right now for this year, I would definitely have to say the offensive line and the running game. So let's go ahead and begin with the tackles right now. 10 tackles will be in the top 100 this year, according to Walter Football. That is right now, we got Oregon, Penei Sewell. Then you'll have USC, Elijah Vera Tucker. Then you'll have Northwestern, Rashawn Slater. Virginia Tech, Christian Darrisaw. Michigan, Jalen Mayfield. Texas, Sam Cosmi. Alabama, Alex Leatherwood. Notre Dame, Liam Eichenberg. Oklahoma State, Tevin Jenkins. And then Michigan and Cincinnati, James Hudson right now. One of the people who I like for the Steelers to select in this year's draft, when you look at, I'll probably have to go with Jalen Mayfield right now. Kayla Mayfield right now, who when we take a look at it for this year, who is coming out of Michigan, right now, according to Walter Football, his quickness and athleticism on the edge, neutralized pass rushers seem to be standing out. Very quick out of his stance as he fires back or forward with explosion of the ball with speed and agility. Mayfield instantly gets good depth in his drop and is able to play the typewriter with his feet to mirror speed rushers. And very solid and contributing in the run at the point of attack. I think that's definitely going to be a big thing right here. Because centers right now, realistically, you only got like one that's really projected to go in the first round. But I really feel like the Steelers right now, they're going to go for any offensive line. I'm looking at tackles right now, to be honest, Jed. That's why we're starting off today right now with that. I think you got to make sure you got to continue because if you do draft a running back right now, aside from that, too, I mean, you look at the other running backs right now. One of the names that's been flowing out since the beginning of this year right now has been right now Alabama's Najee Harris. Now, he is the second-rate prospect in front of the running backs. You're projected to be somewhere between the first two rounds. He's a big back who has some quickness and athleticism for the NFL. But in the last few seasons, he did not run to the sides and looked to bounce too many carries to the outside rather than use his power to run behind his pads in a physical manner. But that's one thing to keep in mind. But if anyone who I like for the running backs, I would have to go right now going into this. I'll look at Kenny Gamewell right now. Kenny Gamewell, who will be coming out of Memphis, he's projected between the first three rounds right now. Kenny Gamewell right now for scrimmage, he has 2,212 yards right now. But at the same time, too, he's also rushed for 1,150 yards, averaging 6.6 yards on the ground, which is the second most in this year's draft, pretty much. I mean, the thing is, you need like a physical back, I think, once again. And I think at some point, too, Gainwell for this year, if they don't get Najee Harris right now, he was electric. And as a redshirt freshman in 2019, he jumped out to teams. There's about 6.3 yards per carry on the year for 1,459 yards with 13 touchdowns. And it was a superb receiver out of the backfield, recording 51 receptions for 610 yards and 3 scores for the air. He's a fast and explosive back who has a threat to rip off a long gain on any touch. 5'11", 191 power, could stand to get stronger for the NFL, but he is a young and has time to develop physically. And I think if anyone, if you want to go with someone right there, Kenny Gainwell is probably one of the guys you may want to pay attention to right now because other than that, the top running back in this draft right now, which I don't see the Steelers getting unless they're willing to trade up, maybe it would be Travis Etienne right now out of Clemson. I would think Kenny Gainwell will be probably like one of the guys they probably look at. I don't know about the first pick, but maybe at some point coming up. 19, he jumped my anticipation this year. I figure, right now, 6.3 yards at some point, I think Kenny Gainwell will be probably worked out with Ben Roethlisberger. Get an offensive line right now, focus on tackles, and I think you're definitely on a good ways to go right there in that regard right there. Just a great start, either way here. And let's take a look at some other stuff right now, too. Don't forget, just to wrap up things right now, when we look at Tag Day just begun right now. One of the things that's been interesting right now, Bud Dupree right now, is he going to get money with the Steelers? Probably not. Remember, Kevin Colbert did express, some hope that they could get a deal done. But, he's not slamming the door on it. He is projected, according to Spotrac.com, when we take a look at Bud Dupree, right, the money that he be commanding here as we look at his market value for this season, according to Spotrac. We take a look at it, just it is supposed to be projected right now for 4 years at $18.2 million, which will mean Steelers would have to at least give him $18.2 million a year for a total of $72.8 million for 4 years. I don't know if that's going to happen, but like I said, hopefully if the salary cap continues to jump up little by little more, only time will tell that for right now. So that's all I got for today right now. I'll just give everybody a quick update here. See who else the Steelers can maintain. There's a lot of stuff right now, too. if they don't get Bud Dupree right now, too, can he get an outside linebacker to start off the draft right now? I would not be surprised in that. I mean, you got a lot of good outside linebackers in this year's draft. 8 of them in the top 100 right now. I mean, you can't go wrong with it, in my opinion. So they may look for someone out of the draft. So let's keep an eye on that. Got a lot of people to take a look at right now and just see, because that's going to be one of the main things is this too. I mean, is J.J. Watt still going to be coming to this team possibly at all? I don't know about that, but I'm looking at a situation right now. I mean, if you're going to look at one guy who they could probably get at outside linebacker for this year, you could probably look at a guy like Xavier Collins right now of Tulsa right now. This guy has a total of 7.5 sacks. He has about 25 tackles for loss in his 3 seasons at Tulsa. I mean, which is like the third most in the top 10 that are projected right here. But we'll also hit on some outside linebackers next Wednesday. So quarterbacks next Monday. Of course, outside linebackers next Wednesday. That's going to do it for this edition here of the Man of Steel podcast. Once again, you guys can follow me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, at Prodigy Richey for the Man of Steel podcast. On Twitter, it is at Man of Steel CTR, and at Man of Steel Nation on Instagram. So I leave you. Don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Agen.